When I was in 6th grade, I did a group project on the country of Denmark. I say group project, but I'm pretty sure I was the only one to do any of the work, but we still got an A. I don't remember much about this project, but I do remember counting to 10 in Danish, and when I got to the number 6, all my classmates started laughing. My 10-year-old sheltered self couldn't understand why they were laughing, but that's besides the point. I picked the country of Denmark for a couple reasons. One being my love for Legos as a kid. Secondly, and probably more importantly than Lego bricks, was the fact that this country has always meant so much to our family. After some Facebook deep diving, here's a picture of my grandparents getting called to be senior missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So you guessed it, Copenhagen, Denmark, about 15 years ago. My grandpa's name is Don, and he first served there when he was a young boy. Well, let's just say more than 15 years ago. And next to him is my sweet but overly competitive Grandma Carolyn. And they have now been married for 60 years. Here they are in the airport coming home from that mission less than 2 years later. See that little blonde-haired kid hiding behind his older brother? Yeah, that's me. Fast forward, and this is a picture of that same pair of grandparents just a few months ago about to board their flight to Denmark for about the 16th time. And here's a picture of my dad and I meeting them just a few days later. I don't think it was 6th grade Matthew's dream of ever going to Denmark, maybe because he had his eyes set on going to the NBA, but I like to believe he'd be pretty pumped to see his future self make it there someday, especially when he sees that he gets to go with that same pair of grandparents that inspired him to pick Denmark for his 6th grade history class. So here's the full circle moments, even though sometimes those circles don't seem that big. Okay, before I begin this epic travel montage, I gotta tell you that this would be my very first time riding in an airplane, as well as leaving the country. So it's safe to say that I was pretty nervous. Currently packing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm also really nervous, but excited. But more excited than nervous. Throw up a little pie chart, Matthew. Right here, 63.5%. Excited, and do the math on the rest, but you get it. So after packing up and driving to the airport, we were soon on our way to a trip of a lifetime. Like I mentioned before, it'll be the first time on an airplane, out of the country, and, well, urinating 37,000 feet up in the air. I've never peed this high up in the air before. Kind of fun. Anyways, on to the rest of the video. After our layover in Amsterdam, we took to the tarmac to board our hour flight to Copenhagen, Denmark. And this face right here, this is a face as well as a sound that I will have the absolute pleasure of getting familiar with over the next 10 days. Welcome to the wonderful city of Copenhagen, Denmark. I didn't film a lot this first day because I was just in awe of the European city and architecture, and I wanted to take it all in, and that I did. It was incredible already. And let me tell you, jet lag is a real thing, because that night we both went to bed at around 7 p.m. And it turns out if you're tired enough, you can sleep through your dad's snoring, which I didn't think was even possible.
Okay, we want to give you a video tour of our apartment. This place is snazzy. First off, you come in and you got to put your hotel key in here if you want lights. We're going to show you the bathroom accommodations we've got here. Toilet, sink, and then there's the shower right next to it. And the squeegee for squeegeeing. Then across the way, we've got our closet space, safe spot to put something in there. What's in there right now? Nothing. Then we come into the kitchen, microwave, very large. Probably won't ever use it. Sink, place to put our dishes that we don't have. Refrigerator, desk space. Here's our converter that we've got to have. So we're gonna see how big out we can build this. Got our lifetime supply, 2-day supply of Sunbelt granola bars. Matthew's bed, my bed. This is our view to Copenhagen, streets of. So see, the buildings are pretty boxy, but modern design. All right, until next time.
It's day 2, and this will become our daily commute to the city. I walk through the mall, across the street, and onto the metro train station, where Grandma had to stop and get us a Danish pastry. Just one of many we would eat on this trip, and to be honest, they were actually pretty good. Besides the flaky texture, I loved them. Our first stop of the day was walking up to the very cylindrical slope of the round tower, and after exploring a hidden room we weren't supposed to, we found ourselves at the top of a stunning view. Speaking of stunning views, we visited the Church of Our Lady, which held the original marble Christus statue. This is such an important symbol of our church and represents the living and resurrected Jesus Christ. With permission, there are copies of it in places I've been to before, but seeing it live, up close, in person, with the original was special. Even in a church building that's not ours, the spirit of Jesus can be found and felt. Where do you go after seeing Jesus, of course? To the Museum of Illusions. Safe to say, we had a little bit too much fun in here. This is my grandma playing cards with 6 of herselves, me trying not to fall out of reality, and Dad practicing his walk for your future Hollywood fashion show. I mean, look at that walk. By the end of day 2, we went to the Copenhagen, Denmark temple, but I'll just leave it up to Grandma and Grandpa to tell you about that.
That was our church when I was a young missionary here. And then when we came back in 2003, they had totally gutted it and was in the process of building the temple around the shell. Of course, we've been back to that temple many times since it was dedicated.
But I would like to hear something from Matthew about your temple experience, because you did quite a bit, actually.
I had to be baptized 10 times.
10 times?
I had to baptize 10 times, and the dude's last name that I was baptizing, I couldn't pronounce, and he started laughing when I was baptizing him. So that was embarrassing.
To that young man I baptized, I do apologize. Duolingo can only do so much. After some frosted flakes, or frosties as they're called, we started day 3 by going to the Rosenborg Castle, the first of 3 castles we'll visit on the trip. I didn't get much footage of the inside, but down in the basement, heavily guarded, mostly by tourists, were the crown jewels. Dad and I then went to go see the guard exchange where the Queen and King lived. And in case you're wondering what the guard exchange looked like, well, just go watch someone play golf because it was just as boring. But what wasn't boring was this policeman's accent.
Cameras, don't hit the soldiers with them, otherwise you don't have any camera longer.
We then treated ourselves to an hour-long canal boat ride around the city, before making it to the world-renowned Tivoli. Grandpa, take it away from here.
And of course, Tivoli itself is quite an experience. It's the second oldest amusement park in the world. It used to be even more beautiful. Now they've taken a lot of the area and made an amusement park out of it, but it used to just be flower gardens and fountains and restaurants, and with just a couple of rides like the old roller coaster.
Which was more scary, taking off on an airplane or the roller coaster in Tivoli?
The roller coaster. That was sketchy. Oh my goodness. I don't like this.
Okay.
But I did it for Trey, not me.
I used you, Trey. I knew that I could get him on, knowing that you would have been disappointed in him. So I had to leverage it while I could, and it worked.
So, after Dad celebrated getting me on a roller coaster, I walked away with major bragging rights, but also very shaky legs. Day 4 consisted of going into 2 more castles, the first being the Frederiksborg Castle and the second the Kronborg Castle, where William Shakespeare based his famous drama Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. But I won't bore you with those facts, and instead I'll just let the castles do the talking.
Learned a lot about kings and queens and saw a lot of churches with priests. As a temple worker, those phrases are going to mean some different things to me.
After some street food, we boarded a ferry across to Sweden. Like Denmark, it is also rich with our family ancestry, so it was cool to set foot on Swedish soil. And it wouldn't be complete without a quick family history lesson from Grandpa.
So let me explain why Sweden is more the motherland. Because although my grandfather, my own very personal grandfather, was born in Randers, Denmark, he was born of Swedish parents. His father had left Sweden to come to Denmark for employment purposes, and his Swedish mother, ran away from home basically from Sweden to come to Denmark because her father wanted her to marry this railroad man that was older than her and whatever, and she didn't want to marry him, so she left home and came to Denmark, where she met my great-grandfather. So we're actually Swedish rather than Danish, although that's just by blood. By love, we're Danish.
And no, that's not Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. That's my dad walking in the 60 miles per hour winds across the Baltic Sea.
You said why you loved to be on the ferry because it reminded you of what?
Well, crossing the Baltic Sea several times as a missionary, and it was good to be back.
As we let Dad reminisce about his younger days, we move on to day 5 and get our fancy car for the rest of the trip. Oh yeah! We didn't do much today but drove across the country through the city of Randers and stopped along the way to eat at an inn.
We need to talk about food because I think there's some hot takes on food, and then there's probably some cold takes on food. It was fantastic to be back where you can drink the yogurt like water. Oh, I love the drinkable yogurts. Frikadellers, they're the real deal. They do not come from armadillos. We established that early on. We got some single serving sizes of Danish rice from the grocery store. Major disappointment. That was even more disappointing than Legoland. It was just awful.
It wasn't
Native.
awful.
It was awful. It was
No.
native land Danish rice that was disgusting. And
It wasn't homemade. It was store-bought, so what do you expect?
I was expecting greatness, and I didn't get it. But we did have a lot of Danishes, and so
Wienerbröd.
bless you. And so
And I absolutely love the wienerbröd.
I ate great here, so it was always fun to look to see what we all got. And then there was what Matthew got. You want to talk about the food there, Matthew? Your take on the food?
I had French fries every single meal here with my hamburgers.
Only French fries.
Had it not been for French fries, Matthew would have starved for sure.
Day 6, we drove up to the very top of Denmark to Skagen. And this is a place where I do remember from my 6th grade history project because of the meeting of the two seas. Okay. What did the Baltic Sea say to the North Sea? Nothing. They just waved. And by waved, I mean just crash right into each other. It was honestly really cool to see, like, SEA? You must be thinking, wow, Matthew, those jokes are funny. Got any more? Well, sure I do. Oh. Later, we also went into this buried church, and it was pretty cool to walk in, but that's about it for day 6. I didn't film much today, but we went to a Viking graveyard, and I'm not really sure what I was looking at, but it was cool to see some sheep. So, there's some sheep. Sheep montage! Sheep! Later, we went to Rebuild National Park, and for a little bit more of explanation of what that is, we throw it back to Grandpa.
So in the early 1900s, a bunch of Danish-American businessmen purchased a large tract of hill country in the beautiful woodlands of Denmark and created this Rebuild Park, which became Denmark's first national park, actually. But it was given to the people of Denmark in appreciation for all that America had given to them. And so every 4th of July since that time, they have an enormous 4th of July celebration there with a high-ranking Danish speaker and a high-ranking American speaker. The first time that I went there, back when I was a missionary in 1961, 2, and 3, Richard Nixon, who was Vice President of the United States at the time, was the American speaker, and the Danish king was the Danish speaker. So you couldn't get really much higher than that. There's also some local Mormon ties to that park, with sculptures by Dennis Smith, who was also a missionary with me at the time that I served as a young man. He came back, went to sculpturing school in Denmark, and then went home and created this statue of family leaving Denmark, and there's quite a monument there.
For day 8, we went into the city of Odense, visiting the house of famous author Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote fairy tales such as The Little Mermaid, Ugly Duckling, and The Princess and the Pea. We then drove with the sunset a bit further to our home for the final 2 nights and settled down with some board games and some good old classic thumb rummy. Honestly, it's these moments that I cherish the most. Sitting around the dinner table, playing my favorite card game with my dad and grandparents, maybe a little too late into the night, but regardless, it's nights like these that I'll never forget. Well, today was our last full day in this beautiful country, and we decided to spend it going to the Roskilde Cathedral, where the halls are full of decorated caskets and tombs of knights, kings, and queens, and other royals, including the organ echoing throughout the church. Then we visited the Little Mermaid statue for significance to pop culture and Danish history, but I think we'll remember it for something a little more, well, I'll just let Dad tell you his story.
We did have an incident, though, that was near tragic. Started at the Little Mermaid and got out, and there's stones down to it, and big crowd around, and I wanted to put on a show. Working my way around to the left a little bit, get a better view of the Little Mermaid without crowd in it, and I saw one stone a little lower that I could get a good angle, so I stepped on it, and it was slimy. It was canal slimy, and shoo, and down I went in a blink of an eye. And can you zoom in? Can you zoom in? Zoom in right there. See that right there? It's swollen. Right there. Smacked it on the rocks. Cracked a rib. I'm talking with a cracked rib right now. Look at me. Probably. It hurts. And so just went down. I heard people laughing at me. Oh! Matthew just sat there and looked at me like, really, Dad? You're going to slip and fall on the rocks? Nobody videotaped it. Missed opportunity there. Nevertheless, we did see a jellyfish as a result. I think we would not have seen the jellyfish otherwise. So, good things can come from tragedy.
You took one for the team.
Yeah, I did.
So lesson learned, always be filming, just in case your dad wants to go swimming with the jellyfish. Too bad Hans Christian Andersen didn't include that in his version. Our next stop was at an amazing art museum. Then we ended the night with yet another sunset.
Do you want to sum up anything? Do you have a summary?
We leave tomorrow. That's a summary.
And Grandpa's right. We leave tomorrow.
When our kids say, why do you keep going to Denmark? There's other places in the world to go. And we know that. I'd love to go to other places, but Denmark's almost like our second home, you know? We come here, we have people that are always excited to see us, and we're excited to see them, and that's why I come back when I've been here, done that so many times. It's for the people and the love we share. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
As we board the plane back to America, I reflect back on this trip. The people we met, the places we visited, the castles we saw. But none of it compares to the memories we made.
Glad that I was able to come and finally come to Denmark with the two of you. And with Matthew as well. I hope this was a memorable trip. And you can look at the camera, Matthew, real quick. Turn on you. Yeah, oh, that was really bad, but get in there. That's better. And it will be a lifetime memory to have.
So Denmark has simply meant a lot to us. Not just the family genealogy that goes back to Danish soil, but the significance of sacrifice my grandparents have taught me. Sacrifice of service and love, and spending a couple years in a foreign place spreading a message of that love through the people they met and the culture they embraced. But I think 6th grade Matthew would be more than pumped to see his future self make it there someday, hopping on a plane and traveling to the country his grandparents loved. I don't think I fully realized it back then, but that's what I've learned from Denmark, more than just researching it for a 6th grade history project.
Final thoughts.
Well, I just don't know how Mom does it every night, sleeping with Dad when he snores.
Those are your final thoughts?
Yep. The end.
How we're ending this.
That's how I'm ending it. Cut.